Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I was once turned into a newt. I got better.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss The Witch, which came out in 2015 from writer-director Robert Eggers. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis for The Witch?
Well, the story follows a New England family who have been banished from their village and decide to build a farm at the edge of a really dark forest. The family are then plagued by supernatural things happening to them from what appears to be a witch deep in the forest. We follow the family to see if they survive.
This is from a first-time film director,
Yeah.
first-time writer as well. He had had quite a lot of sort of shorts, but this film, when it came out, got a lot of acclaim. There was a lot of buzz behind it,
Yeah.
especially after it went to certain film festivals, and everyone said, you have to go and see The Witch. It is perhaps this year's best horror film, if not this year's best film.
Nice.
And to kind of just let it go, I was like, a lot of films come out with a big hype,
Yeah.
and you just kind of go, I'll wait and see what happens after the hype's gone down.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to have now finally seen The Witch. Just from looking at the making of the film, the director spent 5 years just researching the time frame that he wanted to tell this story.
Yeah, you could tell that, yeah.
And he was, focused on that task. So much so that all the people that he brought on board to work on the film, he shared his vision with them, and all they could do was just help him achieve this film.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think is inspiring, especially in first-time filmmakers. When you have a passion, you have an energy, and you have a story you want to tell, and you can do it to this level is fantastic, which just makes me think I'm going to watch everything that this director does from this point forward.
I like you not outside the farm, even to the valley. Does to hear me?
I saw the trailer when it came out and I thought, yeah, it looks interesting, but it's not the type of film I'll rush out to the cinema and watch. And then
Right.
it just kind of disappeared. Nobody was really talking about it. I don't know anybody who actually owns it. And then you said we're doing it for the review, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that film. I'll have to wiki it. I remember wikiing it at the time and thought, wow. Didn't realise how beautiful the film was.
Oh, it is so beautifully shot.
Just every little detail. I'm just going to say now, every little detail from the script to the stuff in the background, to the clothing, to the actors, how they deliver their lines, is so on point. It's fucking, yeah, like Gary said, this guy did 5 years research on it, and you can tell that. And like what you just said about first time directors coming in, we always hear horror stories about the directors coming along and they're getting shafted by the companies, they're getting shafted by the actors, they're getting shafted by this, that, and the next thing, and the film just falls apart. It's nice to hear that this guy got all the help he could, and this is the end product. Because after it, I was like, I really, really liked it, but I don't think I could watch it again.
I could easily watch this film again. This film is kind of like a spell
Yeah.
being put on its audience, where you just become transfixed, whether it's looking at the historical accuracies that the film has, down to the language, the
Yes.
dialogue that the characters have, down to the presentation of it all.
Down to their mannerisms.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I fully believe that these people are on a farm for 24 hours, and well, they've got no internet, no computers, no TV, none of that kind of stuff. So what are they going to do?
16:30.
Oh yeah, what time is it? Well, the sun is almost hither down. You must go and milk thy goats. Yes, I'll put goats down for bedding. I'm like, get those fucking goats in. We've got Ralph Ineson playing William, the father. I've seen him in a lot of British kind of productions. I definitely saw him in The Office when that was out. I saw his name was in Game of Thrones. I'm like, not really fucking surprised there. Everybody seems to be in Game of Thrones nowadays. His wife, Kate Dickie, playing Catherine. Another character you might recognise from Game of Thrones. I don't. But kudos. I reckon that background of starring in that, all those British productions, helped them put on those clothes and just become New England pilgrims.
We must find some light in our darkness. Tomorrow we will have a fast day, but for our sins.
You open up in this kind of court that they're in the village, and William and Catherine's family have done something to upset the village elders. You don't get told. You just kind of have to make up your own idea, listening to the dialogue between father and head judge. And they're talking about how his religious ways are not the same as their religious ways, you know, but he's telling them that his religious ways are no different to their religious ways because he's pretty much doing the same thing, just not at the same time. But obviously you've got the rest of the village stood there going, smite them, smite them. They're not really doing that, but you can just tell by their faces.
For I have done nothing save preach Christ's true gospel.
Must you continue to dishonor the laws of the Commonwealth and the Church with your prideful conceit?
And the family is just banished. And they get to the forest. And the forest either sings at them or sings at them to say, do not go in there. And I've just had this thought, actually. When this family is majorly religious, if they're stood in front of this forest singing or praying to God to give them a sign that they shouldn't farm here, that's the biggest sign ever.
The forest is like, get out! I should bring up that the music was done by Mark Corvin.
Oh.
And the music in this film is fantastic.
Yes.
And the only other time I've heard this man's music before is in the first Cube film.
Oh,
which
really?
It does that film so much justice,
Nice.
you know. It's the sort of music that it works for that isolation.
Yeah.
You know, for those that are in the cube and for these that are in this wood, the music is oppressive.
There is not one positive piece of music, I think, in the whole of this film.
It just fills you with dread.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's also an air of mystery to it as well.
Yeah.
And of course of the supernatural. And yeah, the music does take you on a ride. Now, the director said, interestingly, that all of the stuff going into making the film, to make it visually look like it is 1630.
Yeah.
But all of the music that was done by the film, they toyed with the idea of just using instruments from the time. But no, they've used a range of instruments all the way up to modern instruments in order to capture the music.
Yeah.
But it works so well in creating atmosphere.
Even just the simple things like the lighting.
Now, there's another thing, is that because the film was relatively cheap to make, they didn't have great big expensive lighting rigs out there. So nearly 90% of the film is all natural light.
Yes.
And the fact that, you know, it's not grainy and pixelated and ugly and you can still see everything in the nighttime shots.
Some of those scenes were the most beautiful scenes to look at.
Now, there are a couple of, you know, historical inaccuracies in the film, despite how much they tried. Isn't there always? But they use candles a lot. This family does anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Candles at this time would have been very expensive and would have not been used as freely as they use them in the film. There's also one other thing where later on you see the father hammering nails into the board.
Yeah.
Those nails wouldn't have been in existence yet. There would have been a different type that has a different head on the nail.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that you can point out, but that's nitpicking.
Yeah, that's really nitpicking. 'Cause
Oh yeah.
if you took away those points, the rest of the film, those scenes in particular, would fall apart.
I'd also just like to say that the entire film was shot in less than a month. 25 days to
Wow.
shoot the entire film.
Was that because they were next to the wood and they didn't want to stay that long?
No, I think it's just after 5 years of planning, they just knew exactly what shots they needed and got them.
It's just so brilliantly filmed. You know, you've got that sequence where Thomasin, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, she plays one of the main characters in Split. I haven't seen Split yet, so I can't judge her on her
She's very
performance.
good.
She is very good in this. I felt like she was another Game of Thrones character before I checked her out. And then seeing her, she's there and her mother's just like, take the baby, I'm working. And so Thomasin takes the baby off and she's playing peekaboo with it. And after the third peekaboo, she looks down and the baby is gone. And you just see something or hear something scuttling off into the woods. And you're like, what the hell's that?
Boo! Sam? Samuel!
And you see a figure carrying the baby through the woods to what appears to be a cave or some kind of dark hovel. And yeah, this sequence, her holding the baby with a knife. I mean, that baby has got to be the best actor of 2015 for not absolutely freaking the fuck out by being in that sequence.
I'm pretty sure that baby didn't know where it was anyway, but you know.
Yeah, but the thought of it, you know, the film hasn't been on for that long that we've got this immense gory sequence happening. You know, we don't see it, but we imagine.
We imagine the blades work, and we do then see a female form, you know, smothering herself in baby blood.
Yeah, after kind of smashing it in with what appears to be a giant pedestal and mortar, you know, and then
grinding it up and
smearing it all over her body, and I'm like, okay.
It's pretty revolting, but at the same time, your imagination is doing the work for you. It's linking the two together because you don't know what actually happened to that baby. Maybe.
What the? Really? Really?
Well, at the same time.
Really?
With the baby that was right at her, you know, when
Yes.
Thomasin's there with the baby and she covers her eyes and opens her eyes again, you look at from where they are to the distance to the wood.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's managed to get to her, grab the baby and get back into the wood in like 3 seconds, if that.
Could be a dingo.
But then when you see this figure running through the woods, I'm like, that cannot be the same figure that just snatched the baby. Like, did it just move at the speed of light and then decide to go for
a fucking witch, dude. I mean, seriously, it's a witch.
Don't we know that witches can fly? So why is she now running through the woods?
Maybe her broom's broken.
Maybe we're told that she needs the baby blood in order to fly.
To rejuvenate.
But then how did she get to the baby to get back to the wood?
Maybe she's been stalking them. Like you said, I found that with the film that right from the first scene with them not knowing what they've been banished for, and as the characters all start to develop through the story of the film, there is a lot you don't know, but your mind makes up ideas. As the story would develop, though, I mean, the family are now kind of
broken with Samuel's disappearance.
But weirdly enough, still they're fractured. They're not broken yet.
The mother is
completely broken. The father is trying to keep them together because he really doesn't want to go back to the village. And it made me start to question: did the father do something? Did the mother do something? You know, did one of the children do something? We don't know. But he takes Caleb out into the woods. Brilliant father-son sequence here. Like I said, Ralph Ineson played the father so well that the little boy who played Caleb, Harvey Scrimshaw, was able to reflect this relationship, this long-standing relationship that father and son have had, that now they're living by this really scary fucking wood, and what are we going to do for food because, well, all of our food is rotten. Yeah. And the father's just like, well, we've got these bear traps. I had to sell your mother's silver cup for these bear traps. Don't tell her. I'm going to tell her at the right time. And it sets up these awkward events now. The family just starts to fracture even more just over the missing silver cup. Well, more so than the missing baby.
From the family's perspective, each individual is almost seeing the other as a deceiver or as a liar.
Yes.
In some instance. And so, you know, even though we've got the witch out here manipulating the family itself is also tearing itself apart.
Yeah.
Because they're not a cohesive family unit anymore. You know, with the child missing, they're blaming it on a wolf, despite the fact that nobody ever seen a wolf or has heard a wolf.
Nope.
Then again, nobody's actually seen anything, or have they?
Well, apart from that fucking rabbit.
Yes. Now, rabbits in folklore and fairy tales are also known as...
Fucking do you, mate?
There he is. Where? There. What, behind the rabbit? There is the rabbit.
They're known as familiars to witches. They can also be, it's like milk hair.
You're right.
So, you know, it's like and in some folklore, witches can also turn into hares. And so it could be conceived that is the witch watching them.
Yeah, and Black Phillip.
Yeah.
Yeah, when your pet goat looks like the front poster of a heavy metal German goth devil music.
It's not the goat's fault.
What the?
It looks like a goat.
It looks like an evil goat. And especially the fact that
All goats look evil to you.
no, the white ones look fine, and they're just sat in the back chewing the fucking curds and whey and just doing what goats do. Black Phillip is talking to the two youngest children.
I didn't hear him talking. The kids.
Really? Really? Remember you said that. Remember he said that. He didn't hear it talking. So let's carry on with
Not
the
at this
film.
point.
The children, the youngest children, Mercy and Jonas. Wow. Now, I loved all the actors
Yeah.
in the film. Especially Mercy, played by Ellie Granger. Her lines at the side of the river against Thomasin, who is an older actress, you know, has got a lot more experience under her belt. I mean, I don't know how much Ellie has. Not judging. All I'm saying is that her going up against Thomasin and delivering those lines about what she's seen and the witch out in the woods, I was just like, that child's possessed. We need to deal with her right now. You know, but I felt the scene was slightly ruined because Thomasin then confronts Mercy about Thomasin being the witch and how she took Samuel off into the woods and she's used him in this spell. And I'm like, Thomasin, this is going to come back and bite you in the ass. And as the film is already at a steep drop into depression and darkness, do you really want that?
That's how I signed his book.
No.
He bade me bring him an unbaptized babe. So I stole Sam and I gave him to my master. And I'll make any man or thing else vanish I like.
No.
As the film goes on, the layer of sins, you know, of the 7 deadly sins that this family,
Yeah.
each one of them almost represents one of the different sins or multiple sins, you know, and the two twins they're antagonizing Thomasin
Yes.
to the point where she breaks and she, you know, it's the sort of thing that you do to children. You scare them into believing that a monster exists so that they will behave.
Yes, you scare children. They are not children. They are minions of the devil. They have been minions of the devil ever since Black Phillip turned up at their farm. Weirdly enough, I'd have to watch it again to see if Black Phillip was with them at the beginning when they're traveling there, or did he just appear in the farm and the family were just like, yeah, we've got a Black Phillip now. Yeah, let's keep it.
Ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. What ails Caleb, Black Phillip? What ails him? Did Thomasin make him sick in the wood?
So Caleb has gone off into the woods to see if he can find some rabbits with the secret bear traps that his father has gone. And he takes Thomasin with him because, well, like we said, they're all, you know, sinners and they want to go against their parents. The rabbit fucking appears again, scares Thomasin's horse, and the horse bucks her and throws her off and knocks her out. But Caleb takes his father's rifle and runs after the dog, which is chasing the rabbit. Now, we'd already seen that the gun wasn't exactly in working order when it had backfired on the father when he'd aimed at the rabbit. So you know this is just going to all end badly. And I kept going back to Blair Witch, and I kept going back to the village. You know, just this dark wood, and I kept hoping that, like, I don't know, like a backpacker would come past and be like, "Oh, sorry, mate, you got to go back that way, Caleb. Go back there." But you hear that dog yelp.
Yeah.
And then they come across, well, he comes across the dog's body and it's still alive. I could see, I swear I could see what appeared to be the dog on the floor with its guts out, but it was still moving as if it was breathing as Caleb was coming up to it.
No, do one mind what Satan says. Oh God, my Lord, I now again. Oh, help me, Lily.
That's even more disgusting.
Yes, because you haven't seen what attacked it.
No.
But Caleb has now got himself lost. Now, I'm not a smart man. I don't ever try to represent myself to be. But if you ever get lost in the woods and have to move through more bushes than when you walked in there the first time, you're going the wrong way. Because when he's driving through all those bushes and he's got the gun, I'm like, he's going to drop that. He's going to lose it. He's going to be completely unarmed. And when he finally comes out the other side and you see, well, I want to say beautiful woman.
Oh, yeah.
but I know for a fact she's a soul-sucking witch.
I was instantly seduced. I was like, yeah, take me.
You would be.
Take me.
You would be. And that jump scare as well, that was really well done. For a first-time director, to get the arm out, looking like that, to grab Caleb's head at the end of that long kiss.
I would say, I was enjoying the fact that this film was jump scare light.
Yes.
There wasn't many. It's very much more about the atmosphere and the dread.
Yes.
That's the horror. Jump scare tactics, okay, it's a little moment of energy in the film.
I mean, I'll admit, I don't even think it was intentional. That's just how I felt.
It was a revelation only for the audience watching, because the boy wouldn't have seen the hand.
I mean jump scare. When you say jump scare light, the film was. I don't think the jump scares in the film were intentional, because for me personally, the way the music was being delivered, the way the scene had built up to that sequence, the way the characters were on screen, jump scare or not, I would have still jumped as soon as it cut at the end of any of those sequences, because the director had this really good way of building it up and then going next.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you fuck.
Yeah. And so again, your imagination is going to do the rest, as we now follow Thomasin coming back to the house, minus Caleb.
Yeah. And the whole family, the family is even more fractured at this point. The twins are
accusing Thomasin of being the witch.
Yeah, Thomasin is obviously trying to stand up to her mother and father, because she's saying that she isn't. Father, well, he's just wanting to go off into the rain. He needs to find his son. He's already lost one. He's lost the second one. But before Caleb returns, we have that great confrontation sequence about the silver cup.
Yeah.
And I think I loved those sequences a bit more than the other sequences about the witch, because it was more relatable for me. Just this little sequence about this missing silver cup. Mother is now, unsure.
She's now unhinged almost.
Yeah, she's been wanting to go back to the village, she didn't even want to leave. But Caleb returns and seems to be under the spell.
He reappears completely naked and comatose almost.
Yeah.
And so they try, old school medicine. They take a knife to his temple and bleed him out.
Yeah, that was weird.
I don't know about old school medical practices, but maybe it was to reduce the blood swelling, clotting.
How would they know it was there? I mean, well, he had a fever. I think that's how they dealt with fevers, because he'd been walking in the rain.
Right.
And was completely naked. I wasn't around that time. I was somewhere else. But we them all in the room with Caleb, and they're trying to pray around him. They're trying to obviously get him healthy, and the twins can't remember the Lord's Prayer.
Now, in our history books, it was said that those that were under the spell of witchcraft or that were possessed would not be able to complete the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And so with the two children being unable to complete it, it immediately tells you that they're possessed or they are witches, like the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. But it was harsh, because obviously Thomasin can still do it. And she's there with her mother and father praying for Caleb, who is also speaking in tongues. He comes back slightly at the end of the prayer. And it's like he's saved. But I'm sat there and I'm like, this is not going to end well.
I don't know how saved he is, considering he vomits up a half-digested, half-eaten red apple.
Because he'd been lying about the apples. He lied to his mother.
Yes.
Which obviously is a sin, and so it's now come back on him.
At the same time, it is also kind of like the reversal of the Adam and Eve, who it was Eve who seduced Adam to eat the apple.
Yeah.
Whereas he is kind of getting lustful feelings for his sister, and it was the lust that he had for a witch that managed to seduce him. And of course, then you've got Snow White in the apple. And
yeah.
It's all of this
so many
folklore,
levels.
fairy tales, history. It's there.
And it's just all building up, because everything's everything's going to fall apart. You knew everything was going to fall apart at the beginning of the film.
Well, especially when Caleb dies
and the children
after
go
that moment.
into a coma.
Yes.
And the mother, she is absolutely certain that Thomasin is the witch. And it was another great scene I felt when father and daughter went outside and he's questioning her, "Are you a witch?" And she's like, "No." And then the conversation just turns into an argument where she starts coming back on him about him being a hypocrite, and the two of them just start fighting. And I was just like, that is just so brilliant. That whole sequence just kept me going. I'm like, I need to know what else happens to this family. And the father threatens to bludgeon in the children while they're comatose because he believes they are the witches, because he's confronted his daughter with all of the tests and she's passed. So it has to be these two children. And instead, he decides that he's going to lock them in the barn. All three of them.
Just to be sure.
Just to be sure, because he's going to go back to the village the next day. So we're going to lock them in the barn tonight. And at that point, I was like, it's a familiar trope, isn't it? The whole poltergeist, paranormal activity, fucking horror trope of, we'll go tomorrow.
Not right now.
One more night. We'll just stay one more night. It's like, really? Let's just go. Especially don't seal your innocent daughter, who you believe is innocent, inside. Keep her out. But then him and his wife, they just go to bed. And the mother has that vision.
It's one of the most disturbing images in the entire film. Where she thinks she has her baby Samuel back.
Yeah.
And you see her breastfeeding the baby again. Only to have this shot. Where there is a crow. Or a raven.
Pecking at her boob.
Yeah. And she wakes up the next morning with blood stain.
Did she wake up? She looked like she'd been awake all night.
True.
She could have. Because she saw Samuel and Caleb there. And Caleb said, do you want to see a book? And they'd been talking about how the devil makes you sign this book. And she said, oh yeah, but just let me feed your brother first. And it cuts to the raven part. And I'm like, did she sign? Is she close to signing? I mean, it seems like he's corrupt. If the devil is there, he's corrupting the whole family at this point. They're all going to hell at this point. And the father goes outside and realizes that during the night, the witch has got into the barn and killed everything.
Well, the two little children the twins are gone, and the other goats are laying bloodied and dead on the ground.
Yeah, I felt like the witch, after she turned and laughed, you heard this munching sound like she had launched and eaten them. But Thomasin is like half waking up, not knowing what's going on. And Black Phillip gores the father in the back.
Yeah.
And then slams him into all the wood the father has been chopping up. And that's it. He's out. He's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Thomasin is confronted by her mother, and the two of them fight. And Thomasin has to defend, I want to say defend herself, but she could have used something a little less stabby.
Yeah. And at that first, I didn't know whether the mother was dead or not. I was like, is Thomasin's breathing making her mother move up and down? Yeah. Or is the actress just not...
Yeah, I thought the film had crashed on me at that point because the camera lingered on that one shot for so long. I had to pause the film and go, oh, it is still playing.
And so, yeah, she shakes her mother's corpse off of her, and she's now alone.
Well, apart from Black Phillip.
Who starts talking to her.
Oh, really? What was that, Gary?
Thou want?
Oh, he talks to her?
Well, we don't actually see the goat's lips move. The goat is just there.
And takes the form of a 6-foot man in what appears to be all black, getting her to sign the book. Dude, seriously, Black Phillip was the devil, man.
Oh, yeah, it's quite possible to read it that way. And so Thomasin... removes her clothing from herself, her bloodied clothing, and walks into the wood where she finds 6 other witches.
Yes.
Dancing around a fire, naked. And I can only imagine that they're using the blood of the twins so that they can start floating.
Yeah.
Which is a mystery then, because Thomasin also starts to levitate up.
Well,
And then
yeah.
the final shot is of one witch levitating to the very top of the frame before disappearing. And so that then you're like, well, where did the other witches go? Is that Thomasin up there? Was there only Thomasin the witch? Was there a coven of witches?
Yeah.
Was there a devil? Was there any external forces, supernatural or otherwise, tearing this family apart? Or did this family tear themselves apart from within, being the puritanical, fanatic, religious family that they are, dealing with the fact that each and every one of them has major sins?
See, they had been saying they hadn't been eating.
Now, of
So
course,
maybe they just hallucinated the whole thing.
absolutely, the film even leaves you clues to suggest that they have been eating hallucinogenic fungus known as ergot, which
Yeah.
you can see growing on the corn in several scenes in the film, which is what some historians have led to believe is the actual cause of people blaming witchcraft because they were starved or eating drugged fungus-covered crops, which caused them to see things which were not real.
Wow.
So there's quite a few different ways to interpret what actually just happened in this film. Of course, it's more fun to go, yeah, the witches and the devil and the religious thing, it all happened.
Yeah.
And that makes it an interesting film to watch and rewatch, because you'll be right. This time I'm going to watch the film and I'm going to be of the mindset that this is what's happening, and you can argue both ways, three ways, and that is a rewarding film for me. That, you know, that's like The Shining. You know?
Yes,
And people have said that this director is very Kubrick in his design of this film.
I would definitely agree with that. Yeah.
I would too, and I'm like, that's such high praise, but after watching the film, it's so well deserved.
I cannot write my name.
Guide thy hand. My favourite scenes, you know, I've only really got two, but they are two major scenes that I felt just kept they were like the base for the film itself. It kept everything above water for me to go, yes, I know where I'm going with this film. I'm enjoying this. And it was all just the conversational pieces. The first one is the silver cup sequence when they're sat around the table. Absolutely loved the lighting in the room. Absolutely loved the attention to detail, the way the camera's set. I loved the fact, you know, the mother is arguing with the daughter about the silver cup, and we've just come off the scene where the father has told the son about what's actually happened to it. And I'm just like, it was beautiful. And it was the same feeling I got when the father confronted Thomasin about being a witch outside, and just how this camera stayed on these two actors and they delivered this really well written script, and the argument kept flipping back and forth until it just, you know, exploded out. I could easily say that all of the supernatural stuff was, you know, brilliant to watch as well. It was like a sprinkling. You didn't need to see too much to feel uneasy. Like there was that, like just seeing the three of them sat in the barn, right? You know they shouldn't be there. You know something bad's gonna happen. You can fucking see Black Phillip just sat there chewing, like, yeah, something fucked up's gonna happen. And the way they turn to Thomasin, they're like, "Are you a witch?" And she's like, "No."
I really enjoyed this film, and I'm trying to picture scenes, and because the film just flows so well from one moment to the next, it's hard to go, where does this scene start and where does this scene end?
Yes.
It flowed perfectly. I guess there's memorable moments in the film, like finding the remains of the dog, the crow pecking at her tit. You know, it's just it's just imagery that's only there for a few seconds and it's gone again.
Thomasin walking into the forest at the end.
Thomasin walking into the forest at the end and finding the coven and then floating in the air. The witch stepping out of the darkness to seduce Caleb. There's just so many little moments that are they're short, but they stick with you.
That must have been such a weird set to walk in on that day. You know, a black-headed goat, a bonfire, and a bunch of naked women singing.
I so easily recommend The Witch. I mean, I keep almost calling it The Witch.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that if you go back in history, look at the alphabet,
Yeah.
we never used to have the letter W.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it used to be 2 V's. And it was only later that we actually added the letter W to the alphabet.
Yeah, Vavanka doesn't sound very well.
No. But the thing is, as historically accurate as this film is, in the 1630s, we did actually have the letter W. So there was no real reason to call this film The Witch. I absolutely recommend the film. The story is, there's not much in terms of story. But in terms of characters, events, and atmosphere, and everything that's happening to them, it's so compelling that you want to keep watching to figure out what is the witch doing, what is the witch up to, what is its end game.
Yeah.
Only to find out that the main character you've been following is to become the witch, or is the title of the film's Witch.
Or is she?
The atmosphere is oppressive. It is full of dread, and you're watching this family living on the edge of existence in total isolation. I think the film is fantastic and one of the best films I've seen in a while.
I do recommend the film, but I only recommend it to the people who like horror movies. I wouldn't recommend this to people who are obviously not interested in dark, depressing, atmospheric movies, because that's what you get right from the start with the music, the camera work, the script. Everything is just dark and oppressive. They are living in the 17th century, which was not one of the happiest times. They are possibly eating poisonous corn, so they're hallucinating and killing babies, and children. A fucking goat talks to them. The rabbit is fucking scary as shit. And if there's a woman in the woods, you never go in her fucking house. Okay? Just don't. I personally wouldn't rush to watch it again. If I had 6 months a year and somebody went, hey, do you want to watch The Witch, and I was feeling in the mood, I'd be like, yeah, okay, put it on. But there are better horror movies I would watch at that time, but that's just me. You might be a Witch fan, you might have Hocus Pocus, fucking Practical Magic, and The Witch all on a fucking Saturday night where you stand around a fucking cauldron, throwing baby's blood into it. I don't know. It's a really, really good film, and I am interested in seeing what the director does next.
Hell yeah. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.